You are now tuned into Brave Conversations.
Mr. Boggs, it's good to have you on the chat.
Cool, thanks, bro.
We'll be talking about all things content, all things about experience design, the stuff that you're really good at doing. But firstly, we just recently rebranded Bravado.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
So, it came from a point of view that we in the market were known for an activations agency. And that sort of gives you like one silo, like a linear point of view.
Sure.
But our clients had been demanding more of us in terms of how do you create a great experience for their customers, right? So what I mean by that is last year, for example, with Nedbank, we were at Hey Neighbor. The thing that would have done was had a stand there and that was it, right?
The usual stuff.
The usual stuff. So what they challenged us is to say, if I'm a Nedbank client attending Hey Neighbor, what will I experience from a Nedbank point of view? So what we did is we created an experience and I'm going to get into our model, but we triggered it online first for people to engage with the brand, win tickets, they get to the festival, they get to the stand, and at the stand you're different elements there. So ultimately what we want to do is we want to create a holistic experience of the brand. We were chatting to another client and they're like, but what does that mean? So I always joke around. So we're not a 360 agency, we're a 270-degree agency. But we're not saying we're not going to do the TV, but I think for us, we believe that content is the trigger that is driving brand experiences. So we would rather do a content piece on digital platforms than a big piece of TV. I think it's got its place, but I think from the actions that we want, which should always be measurable, for us the trigger, not always, but most of the time is going to be on digital.
Cool. So you said trigger 3 times, and obviously a lot of people might be going, what was this guy talking about?
Oh yeah, no.
So let's talk about IBX, right?
Yes.
The framework that you've created. Some people just think we just go and throw parties, right?
Yeah.
But there's actually thinking behind this.
100%.
So tell us about what that means. What's IBX?
So IBX is our integrated brand experience model.
Yeah.
What it is that it's got 3 components, right? The 3 components are, there always needs to be a trigger, and that trigger needs to lead to an action, and that action needs to be measured.
Got it.
So if I use an example for Comrades Marathon, what the Comrades team who organizes the marathon, they want as many runners as possible.
Sure.
So how do they get you and me off this couch to get onto training to ultimately run Comrades and then measure it? So the trigger for us would be digital, showing content of previous winners, showing content around people who were couch potatoes but ran and ended up excited about it. And suddenly like look at each other like, Musa, like, let's do it. So that triggers you into action, right?
Yeah.
And the action is ultimately you buying a ticket to buying an entry to run the Comrades next year. And the measurable action is how many people entered and how many people finished.
Nice.
Because what they want as an event organizing team is to have as many runners as possible, obviously from a revenue perspective, but also from a legacy perspective. You can't have 100 people just entering Comrades.
Absolutely.
As grueling as it is, they make it exciting for you to run Comrades. So I decided to use an arbitrary example from a Comrades perspective because it can be applied in many aspects. The sexy thing was I would have used a whiskey brand, right? So you need to always have a trigger, you need to always have an action, and it always needs to be able to measure, because our clients who are CMOs and marketing executives and marketing managers, they're being challenged by the board to show results, right? I mean, if take me back to 2016, where clients would give me 6 million rand to do varsity activations, and you come back and say, hey, you know what, we just opened 200 accounts. Next, we're doing it again. Exactly, doing another thing. So what now it happens is they'll be like, how do we measure the value of the budget that we're giving you?
Right.
And that keeps us thinking. So
is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right? Does that limit creativity in your world? Does it liberate creativity in your world? Is it a fundamental barrier to you being able to do amazing things?
I think it's two sides of the same coin. I'll tell you this. It's important to always walk into a framework of, actually, guys, I always tell my team, if MTN comes to us, just know what MTN wants. MTN wants you to sell a lot of airtime and data, right?
MTN, yeah.
Exactly. So that's what they want you to do.
Yes.
The flip side to it is you're going to have to be challenged to be creative around that.
Right.
Because you can always come up with great ideas, people jumping out of the sky at the right piece. But does that give me data? Right? So it challenges our creative teams to answer the question of they want to sell a lot of data all the time, every time from MTN to MTN, because that's where they get their revenue. I think what changes the narrative in our space from a brand experience perspective is that you then start thinking about channels and touch points, right? Because initially, for example, all week it would mean you're just on campus.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you think about it, half of the students going to VITS are not on campus because they've registered on their mobile, they're out in Bram having a good time partying. So how are you going to talk to that student who's not on campus, right?
Okay.
So you need to create an experience that speaks to the guys that are on the physical experience, but also engage the guys that are on the digital experience and merge the two, right? So I think that's what's exciting about the rebrand and relaunch.
And how do you make that consistent, right? You've got this process, you get a brief about designing this amazing experience.
Yeah.
Then you've got the reality on the ground, which is people are going to show up there and they need to be wowed into being able to do something.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that from brief to the on the ground experience, the digital experience, how do you make sure that it delivers, right?
Yeah. So I think what we being challenged by you in the business is how to constantly use technology, right? So briefs coming in the system, making sure that they're being filtered properly, they're not being misinterpreted.
Got it.
And I think what technology does for us is that so for example, if you throw it into a ChatGPT and you say, clarify this brief for me, like what are the 5 things that you want? Then you clarify it, send it back to client and say, did we get you right? Because sometimes you get, no offense to clients, you get either a 1-pager or a 10-pager. By the time you're on page 6, WhatsApp voice note, and you're like, okay, right? So I think technology is going to do that for us. But I think from a creative perspective, it's just challenging the creative teams. Like constantly challenging them. I was in the office before we started having a chat here, and one of the teams were telling me they were in a client session, and another agency was being grilled about not delivering, and the creative is not great. And then I said, do you understand why I go mad when we don't deliver? Because I become this mad scientist. I'm like lucid. I was like, I don't like being in conversations where clients think we don't understand them. Because what's going to happen is they'll meet somebody who will claim to understand. It's a dating game. So you always find somebody who's dressed better, looks better. They might not do what you can do, but at face value, make you feel that because you're having frustrations with your team not delivering. So I think it's critical that our creative teams know what it's about, and hence we decided to have a model, right? So it's the trigger, it's the action, and it can be measured.
People are crazy about AR, VR, all this stuff that was supposed to fundamentally change. What's your view on that?
I truly believe technology. So I don't even want to call it technology because I think we externalize it. So my mother is my mother is 74 this year. The woman binges on TikTok. Right?
My kind of lady.
Like that she will consume gospel stuff. Like she sends me conspiracy theories and you're like, don't drink the water. Don't be that aunt on the group. But if I tell her to say, how are you using technology? She's not gonna answer me to say she's using technology because she is, right? And so we're in this world where it's not even it's just who we are.
One could argue that technology is working best when you don't know that you're using it.
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to say. So for me, it's about, again, channels and touch points.
Right.
So how do we engage you when you are using your phone, which is your tech? How do we, and it's the tough part, how do we engage you physically, right? Because our attention spans are, I don't even think are a second. Like yesterday we were chatting about, do we really consume those, and I'm not trashing TVCs, do we really consume those 30-second ads, right? Because back when TV was big, we were stuck and watching it.
Yeah.
You know, we had to wait when Archie Moroka was about to act, and then they stop. And while you're waiting for Archie to come back, they're bombing you with this 30-second ads.
Yeah.
Now, either you skipping Archie, or there's no Archie Moroka on Netflix. You know, I mean, there's no that moment, because on Netflix you just continuously binging, or you can pause it, forward it, or ad blockers, or you're while it's playing in the background, you're on your phone watching it with somebody and laughing with your sister or whoever. It's like, oh, did you see that? So when you think about where now technology is we need to find channels and places of interruption to interact with you using when you're on your phone, when your laptop, or because even TVs are now part of technology, and also physically, because our attention spans are now like shrunk. So that's how
one would argue that that's actually the best place. The experiential, if you do it well.
Yes.
That you minimize interruption, right? If people are truly immersed and they're doing what you designed for them to do, you minimize the interruption because they're focused on the thing.
100%.
So who's doing it right? Who do you think is getting it right? Are there some campaigns that you've seen that's building these great experiences?
So for me, I think F1,
really?
Formula One has nailed it down.
You're right.
So from Drive to Survive, and imagine attending it. They want you to attend Formula One. Many people were not watching Formula One.
That's true.
But now people are vested in it. So you can imagine if we've got the opportunity to attend, you first watch Drive to Survive, you understand the drivers from a content perspective. You arrive there, you're touring the paddock, then you're part of the actual race, and then you're interacting with them on social media, and they're doing all these things. So I think going from a Formula One ecosystem perspective, they've got it right. They're really, really missing you. And I think Netflix is doing quite a lot. I mean, they've done it with the Tour de France. So, I mean, I'm into cycling. But if you're not into cycling, you watch that, you now know the personalities. Because normally people never used to consume sports content because they never knew the guys. But we all know the drivers now. We know their families. We know their issues that behind it. Exactly. So I think Formula One for me does it well. And then a consumer brand. A personal consumer brand is Stanley Cups. I saw what they did with content creators in the US. So Stanley, the brand has been around. It's a camping brand, boring, does flasks, quite industrial. But then they've created these cups, and all young ladies and even older want to have the Stanley Cup because what they did is they created great content. And the crazy part is they partnered with Target. So Target is like the ShopRite in low cost. But what they did is they created this cups and high end consumers were actually going to, so the Woolies consumers would go into a shop right to go get a cup. So you can imagine what they did there from a brand experience and content creation.
Look, it's good to see, because what it actually means as well is that you can bring people that are in the fringes of your brand. And I suppose that's what building businesses is.
Exactly.
Because you're obviously selling to people that already love and believe you. But the ones that are in the fringes, on the outskirts, you can also bring them into the experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so the relationship between content and experiences is really important. So for you, what are the three things that you must get right? What are the three things when you think about designing amazing experiences and ensuring that they deliver not only what you call physical and digital? What are the three things that you have to get right? You can't get wrong. So
you have to get your trigger right. Right. You have to know what is the trigger going to lead to. You have to get your action right. And it's just how a model is based. You have to get your action right. And ultimately, because somebody's paying for it, you have to get the measurement matrix right. So you want, sometimes brand sentiment, but as you know, in boardrooms, you can't be sitting and telling a bank CEO our brand sentiment is up. He's going to probably ask you, okay, where the accounts, right? So you have to get those three things right. And that's why it's at the center of our repositioning, our rebrand, and ultimately our model.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the impossible question.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible to predict the feelings and emotions of all human beings in the next century to come?
No, I don't believe that. I think we'll get close, but I still believe that there's a higher power that controls human beings. So I think we are above it all, because
As human beings,
right? So to get to a point where somebody can predict how you're gonna feel tomorrow, because when you think about it, and right now you could look at your phone and, God forbid, that one of our kids has had an accident at school. You can't predict that. Here we are having a great conversation, and there could be a terrible dad. I'll be like, oh, his mom is gonna go, or I could be like, oh my God, I need to go, stop everything and rush. So it's that, the spiritual side of it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll look back one day and I got a chip in my.
You're gonna watch this video.
What does it say exactly? I got a chip in my arm or in my brain.
Yeah.
But I really think from a spiritual perspective, I think humans are superior beings. That's why we don't wake up and just want to eat each other.
Hopefully that doesn't change.
No.
Thanks, Bongs.
Thanks, man. Thanks for chatting.
Be sure to tune into the next episode of Brave Conversations.